Everyone here in Silicon Valley. We're live. And good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you to all of our viewing partners. And of course, thank you to our sponsors and everyone who's viewing this webinar right now. We are very excited to have with us Ash Sadiq. Ash is a success and leadership speaker and author, and he's the expert on the top 1% sales winners and leadership strategies and behaviors in high tech and in other industries. So we're really excited to hear from you today, Ash. With that, I'll turn it over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Lina.
Sure.
So happy to be speaking with everyone, and really look forward to spending a good quality time with you. We're going to have some fun and not take ourselves in any way too seriously. So we'll go ahead and take a look at some of the content I would be sharing with you today is really the result of bringing a lot of sense to a lot of data points that I gathered throughout my career. And we'll start by taking a look at the very first slide, and then we'll move from there to the first content slide, which is slide number 2. Let's see here if I see it. Perfect. So essentially the topic is to take a look at what are the fundamental things that really create success. And you know, throughout my career, as I mentioned, I have been looking at how do you actually create success, you know, consistently. So when we take a look at the opportunity that faces most of us today, most of us feel like we could do more, we could be more productive. If you have a business, you're thinking, I can make a lot more money with this business, but I just don't know how. And what we're going to see in the next slide is the beginning of sort of unfolding of you know, what are the things that are expected of us, you know, what are the challenges that are facing us, and how do we look at these challenges and then back into the formula that I developed that basically will help you have a very quick approach to what do I need to do and be able to actually activate quickly and very successfully. So when I looked at some of the challenges that are taking place today in 2016, most business challenges are, again, challenges that every one of us is also facing at an individual level. And that's a key point, I think, for our discussion today. Most of what we will talk about has individual relevance for us as individuals, as professionals in our careers. It has very huge relevance to teams within organizations, and then it also has relevance for businesses in general. So I think most of us and most of our businesses today are thinking about how do we manage our reputation online. We are now, most of us are public figures, given the fact that we're all over social media. A lot of our lives and our professional lives are now on the web. Things are moving very fast, but then again, are we moving fast enough because of, you know, competition, whether it's local or global? And also, how do we manage growth expectations, again, as individuals and as businesses and as business leaders? And then eventually, at the very end, how do you genuinely connect with customers so that they actually have a human being, a human touch that is within their reach? So with these challenges in mind, again, think of them as challenges that you're having as well as challenges that our business is having. And when we take a look at the next chart here, so most of us, or at least some of us, you know, we feel stuck. You know, we're not making enough progress, and we want to do quite a bit more. And then if you are a business, most businesses you'll find suffer from what's called underutilization. A lot of businesses today have a whole lot more capacity. Most of them will tell you we can sell more, we can get more customers, we have employees ready to do more work, but again, most of us are feeling like we're not really at the optimal capacity that we're looking for. So that's the reality, and I'm hoping that some of the things that I would be sharing with you today, you can actually use them to really make a difference with this reality. So when we take a look at the next chart, and I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this jacket, which is pretty hot here up in Northern California. The solution that we have to think about, which I'm hoping to really arm you with today, is it has to be a simple solution. It has to be something that you don't have to be thinking too much about, but it really becomes part of who you are and how you do your business. So really we're trying to think about giving you almost like a new modus operandi, a new way of operating. So it has to be simple, it has to be powerful in the sense that wherever you are, whatever it is that you're doing, you can actually implement it, which means it can be done anytime, anywhere, it can stand the test of time, and it's going to produce the desired results that you're looking for, which means it's a very effective solution. And then the other thing is that it has to be very systemic in the sense that every time you do it consistently, it can be replicated and it has validity in it. So whenever you do it, it's the same process, and then you're going to get very, very results. So that's the solution that we need to create in order to have very much a success formula, and that's what we're going to try to take a look here as we move forward in this slide deck. And we'll have a chance also to have some Q&A, so I will be doing that with you as well. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the next chart.
And sorry, with regard to the Q&A,
Yes.
if anyone has an immediate question, you can just live tweet us. Just send us a send us a tweet, or on Facebook, feel free to send us a message, and we'll get it to Ash that way.
Thank you. So in order to also give you a sense of, hey Ash, well, how did you come up with all of this? What's the background for all of this? And what I want to do here, I want to share with you my story, how I evolved over the years, and how we are here today kind of sharing with you this success formula. How did I end up developing that? At a very early age in Alexandria, Egypt, where I came from, I actually ended up working throughout the summers in many different kinds of jobs. Worked with my dad in his family, in our family business, and did a lot of interaction with customers. Sometimes, I did good service. Sometimes it was bad service. Sometimes even I attempted door-to-door sales. And then when we take a look at the next stage, ended up going to college, and I ended up thinking, I think, until today, I think a little bit different than a lot of other people. So when I went to college, it wasn't about what topic do I like to study. I was very market-driven because of having worked at an early age with my dad, and understood that if you don't have something that somebody else wants, you're not in business. So when I went to do my studies, I had to basically focus on what is the thing that I can learn, and then people would find useful, and I can turn that into a money-making opportunity. So I ended up joining the Faculty of Arts in Alexandria, studied actually English literature, and ended up teaching English in Egypt in schools, universities, academies, AUC, most of the well-known places in Egypt. That was the initial start, and then we'll take a look at the next phase where, and I'm also sort of like summarizing big portions of time here. The big lessons I think I took from that experience in Egypt is you have to think your target market first, then what the product is and what the service is, and then in all of those instances you're always selling. So you better start by learning how to sell yourself, which was a big part of the equation in any interaction. And then think about your customers' needs, whether it's the hiring manager's needs or you're trying to sell to a business. And then you come back and think about how can I tailor my solution and my product and my service to their needs. And then we look at the next stage of evolution. I shifted over to the US, and I started essentially thinking about all that academic work that I came from, and I started working in corporate America, focusing on helping organizations develop their people. So develop talent, training, skill development. And the key question that you always have when you're thinking about these things is how can you help somebody who is doing their job at a certain level of performance move to a higher level of performance? And then the most traditional way for trying to do that even in today's world, is that you take that individual and you put them in the classroom in a corporate environment, where they call it training, and you try to sort of come up with a development opportunity for them. It's a very simulated environment, doesn't work really well, and that's why some people use simulation, some people use experiential training, but essentially that's essentially what was happening here at Charles Schwab in San Francisco, where I ended up doing some technical training and software development, project management, then went into Deloitte, where I got exposed to management consulting and got to understand what that looks like. How can you actually take a look at the customer relationship with a long-term view? So it's not a transaction, it's a relationship, and that's a critical component of what we will end up having in the formula today. And then I ended up going to Oracle as a program manager who developed value selling methodology for all of Cisco's sales and consulting professionals at a global level. Got exposed to that opportunity, got to work with people who were looking at the different software solutions. How do we translate these solutions into a business value, and then how do we actually end up selling it? And then after Oracle, went to another software company called Broad Vision, where the objective again there was to enable a lot of companies at that time get into the .com era. And then in 2001, the crash happened as far as the .com crash, and I found myself on the street, which was one of the best things that could ever happen to any of us, is when you are pushed against the wall and you have to think, what do I do? Which really puts me back in Egypt in terms of, now I need to think about a target market, something that they need, come back and say to myself, how do I then develop a product or service that these folks could buy from me? So it's not about, oh my goodness, I have to find somebody to hire me. Forget that. You have to actually think about target market, target needs, and then how to come back with a value proposition. Then after 5 years, and we'll find out what happened in those 5 years, in 2006, I actually joined Cisco, stayed there from 2006 to 2015, and that's where we are pretty much here today. We'll take a look at the next portion of that timeline. And we see that in 2002, really out of desperation, I started a company called Fremont Consulting. I knew some about consulting from my work at Deloitte, but I knew nothing about recruiting, which was a big portion of what Fremont Consulting did. So zero knowledge about recruiting. Now that business ranges between $1.5 to $2.5 million, depending on the annual revenue. And without really giving it 100% of my attention, and learning as much as possible throughout that process, and picking some nuggets from Deloitte, implementing them here, from Oracle, implementing them here, and using all of that knowledge to develop that business and keep it going. Even when I was working at Cisco, that business continued to grow with essentially some brand name clients that we have. In 2015, when I got laid off from Cisco, I launched the Top 1% Sellers Factory because I had an opportunity to work with the top 200 accounts at Cisco and looked at how do you develop people who are really selling and making a lot of money already. How can you help them even make more money? So we had to take a look at how do we develop them, how do we bring thought leadership from outside Cisco and really get them to improve their sales and their revenue share from the company, the clients that they serve. Now, within the Top 1% Sellers Factory, I developed a blueprint for helping sales professionals become top 1% sellers. So we really basically give them a nice roadmap for how to get there. But then I reflected and I said to myself, you know what? There's a lot of success factors here that any one of us could benefit from. And that's how I ended up developing the Own It, Win It, Crush It, Profit Success Formula, which is what we will actually spend the rest of our time on. But I really wanted to kind of give you, how did I come upon this formula and what are the basis for developing it? And now we'll take a look now at some levels of detail here. So as we think about this, in my mind, based on the stories I just shared with you, the things that really made a big difference for me were not the successes, were not the good people that I met. It was actually the failures and the difficult people that I met. So I am basically here saying adversity, failure, challenges are actually the best catalysts for your success. So The boss that fires you is much better than the boss who does not fire you. The colleague that gives you a hard time is much better than the colleague that doesn't give you a hard time. In fact, based on my experience, I want to go back and give these people huge hugs, because they really forced me to think about, well, how do you sort of fix those dynamics, whether it's human relationship dynamics, business success dynamics, and how can you make sure that you create success out of these difficult scenarios. So the largest opportunity, I think, for all of us is to change what I'm basically calling the repertoire of mindsets, beliefs, behaviors to the better on a daily basis. And I know that's what you do anyway, but I want us to consciously think about, am I really making a difference here to the better, so that when you do that, you have a big chance of achieving a paradigm shift that will basically take you 10 times better than where you are today when you think consciously about making a change to the better in terms of how you're thinking about the world, how your beliefs are shaping your behavior, and then how can you actually create much better scenarios for yourself. We'll move forward. So again, as part of my experience, I had, of course, to look at a lot of human and peak performance business experts, take a look at a lot of the theories they talked about and the models. As I am working, as I'm being asked to develop, corporate development opportunities, whether it's for sales or leaders within Cisco management, engineering, you name it. And that's essentially what I mentioned a bit earlier, that's really was the basis for the blueprint. And I think my intention was, take all that complexity and provide a simple yet very powerful way to think about the universe. And then with that thought process, we can then try to achieve much better success. So we'll move ahead. So now we come to, what is this formula that we're talking about? And we're calling it the own it, win it, crush it, profit success formula. Very important for us to start at the philosophy level. So what I'm really sharing with you now is that my view of the world in terms of how do you achieve success, and that view is based on a specific philosophy. And that philosophy starts with a very critical component, that the world is really based on long-term relationships and not transactions. If at any moment you're thinking, I'm going to interface with this person, interact with this person, and he or she is going to forget me, you're really not investing. And that's a big part of what we mean here by philosophy. And what I just mentioned is not on the slide, but you actually want to write that down in a big way, and then check my YouTube channel for the full course on mindsets. The second and most important philosophy is that if it's to be, it's up to me, which essentially means forget talking about, I wish my government does this, I wish my boss does that, I wish my dad does this. If you need to get anything done, a very big part of our philosophy in the Western world or even in the Arab world, and I'm sure you've seen this in your life, if you wanted to get anything done, if you did not take any action, it never happens. So that's a very important philosophy for us to adopt. If it's to be, it's up to me. And then the other piece, especially for us in the Western world, a lot of people on this side of the ocean think that they deserve a lot of things, that they are entitled to a lot of things. You have to start with, you know what, I don't deserve nothing, I'm not entitled to anything. If anything's going to happen, it's going to start with me. I have to take the action, I have to initiate it. And then the next piece is, you need to start by defining what you stand for. You have to stand for something. You have to have your own standards, which really formulate what your own brand is, whether you are an individual or a business. Again, everything we're talking about applicable to individuals as well as businesses. The other piece is that it is an outside-inside world. As I was trying to say earlier, don't think about what you got and what you're trying to sell, but rather find out what they want to buy and then think about how can I go sell it, right? So it's an outside-inside worldview. Give first, serve first, and then you get rewarded. Don't say, I'm going to wait till they give me something, but rather, what value can you actually bring? Then the next one, which is a phenomenal piece of advice. The way you do anything is the way you do everything. And this one, it's going to stop your tracks every time you're going to try to take some shortcuts. Every time you're going to try to not treat someone really well. Every time you're going to try to get a project done without the quality level it should be done, right? So when you remember this, every time you do anything, you're going to have to do it in a way that somebody will say, Ash came this way, he did this for us, my God, it's amazing, we still remember to this day, right? That's the kind of experience you want to create. Then the next piece is, it all starts inside your embedded system, your operating system right here, your thought process, right? Your mindset, your beliefs and attitudes. A lot of your actions on a daily basis are starting all the way on the inside. So you want to, as much as possible, try to uncover what's going on here and then see how it shows up. You also have to get very selective. Some of the thought processes, some of the mindsets, some of them, you got to trash them, right? It's almost like, again, your operating system. Some of those code pieces are not good anymore, and you're going to have to get very selective. You're going to pick what's proven to work and shed off the others. And hopefully you can do this on a consistent basis and very regularly. Then the last one, very critical for all of us to memorize this piece, which is time kills all deals, which essentially means nobody's going to wait for you, right? If you don't work on an opportunity fast enough, it's going to disappear. Everything that you're supposed to do, be very conscious of being very fast, because nobody waits for nobody. And what that essentially means is the faster you are, the more efficient you are, the more effective you are, the more successful you are. So with all these philosophies in mind, all these views in mind, we're now going to take a look at the formula itself on the next chart. Yeah. So this is the formula. We start with 3 levels of mastery. And again, that's based on my looking at, all the way back in Egypt, looking at university students or even, high school students, to, managers at Oracle, managers at Broad Vision, sales professionals at Oracle, sales professionals at Cisco, senior leadership at Cisco. When you take a look at all of that, you really find out that at the end of the day, it's really going to come down to how each one of them masters and manages him or herself. That's the own it piece. The second piece is, how do we create value, which essentially means whatever it is that you as a professional bring to the table. So let's say you are a graphic designer. The level of excellence that you as a graphic design professional see in yourself and in the work you do and everything you do to continue to be the best professional in graphic design as possible, that's what this mastery is about, right? So it's really more about the technical expertise you have. The last mastery is really about thinking about your customer and making sure that you're always delivering customer outcomes. So those are the 3 masteries. And again, you can see here, self-mastery is the own it. The value creation mastery is about winning it, really being very excellent at what you do with your customers and really giving them a good experience, and we'll see the details on that. And then the last one is, when you crush it, that really means that you deliver the results for the customers. The customer does really get results. And again, if you're a professional working in a small team, are you delivering what your team is looking for? Are you delivering what your company is looking for? Are you doing that really well? If your company were to go out and find somebody else that does that, would they be hard-pressed to say that the person we have on the team is unparalleled, he or she is amazing, we cannot, for our own success in any way, allow ourselves to actually bring any different talent to do this for us, right? So what is your competitive position? Are you in a situation where it's very weak and what you're doing is not good enough that they have to go find somebody else or not, right? So with that, let's move forward. And I want to share with you a story real quick. From time to time, I'll have these conversations with friends. And this friend of mine, I met her in LA. She said to me, Ash, I really hate my job. I can't wait to quit and start my own business, work for myself. Because, it sucks where I work. And you hear that a lot. I said that sometimes, right? So my answer to that is, and my answer to her was, you're always running your business. You're always running your business, whether you are working in an organization, in a company, in a nonprofit, for a government organization, having your own business, you're always running your business. And with that in mind, since you are running your own business, this formula gives you 9 key components for making sure that on a daily basis you have a philosophy, you have a culture, you have a certain set of values that really then kind of help you run the show on a daily basis. The very first level here, at the own it level, you have to have what's called a responsible mindset. If you're the kind of person that basically says, oh my God, I wish they gave me the right tools. I wish my manager was better. I wish my job was better. I wish this was not a toxic environment. My response to you is, forget all of that. None of that matters. What matters is, what are you going to do today to make a difference? So if you're the kind of person who has a victim mindset, you're wasting your energy. You're wasting amazing, amazing opportunity of being in this universe on a daily basis. So it's very important for us to start at that responsible mindset. And again, on YouTube, you'll find me explaining this a bit more. The second mindset is the abundance mindset, very critical for, again, owning it. And the abundance mindset has 2 sides of a coin. The first one is you actually see yourself as this amazing, amazing powerhouse of potential, which means every day you're trying to really get more of that potential out of yourself. And that potential is abundant. There's just so much in you that you can really get out. The second side of that coin is to really see the whole universe as abundant, in the sense that there's a ton of opportunities, there are a ton of jobs, wherever you are, and I know some of us are in very tough environments. But at least if you start with that in mind, that you can make a huge difference and you can go out and create opportunities that may not even exist, that's where you want to play. You want to think of yourself as a creator of opportunities rather than someone who is a recipient of opportunities. The reason why we say this is that we are picking the power position versus the passive, I'm going to sit here at the coffee shop and wait for a job to come by, right? So when you are the creator, you can get together with a few friends and start a company. You can get together with another friend of yours and put some money together and start a business. You can knock on the doors of a business owner and say, I can make a difference in your business, and here's how. You have to think unconventionally. If you want to achieve unconventional success, you got to have to think unconventionally. And that's really where these mindsets are very critical. There are hundreds and hundreds of ways to think about the world, and I've tried to pick the 3 for you that make the huge difference. The third mindset is the consultative mindset, which essentially means you have to see yourself as a servant of service to others, that in every interaction it's really more about, how can I help you? How can I help you achieve your own success? It's not about me, 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 because that's when you lose it. It's really more about them, 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 and what you could do for them. And when you help them succeed, then you're going to get that success sort of giving off and rubbing off on you. Then we take a look at this mastery, we summarize it. That's why we're calling it own it. When you own it, nothing in the world is going to stand in your way. You really are the driver. You are in the driver's seat. You make a difference every day. You get up and you've got this sort of control over your day versus being a victim and somebody who's just waiting for things to happen. When we take a look at the second mastery, which we're basically calling it the win it mastery, and again, as I mentioned, it's really more about you delivering an amazing service or product. But it starts with having this service mindset, right? A service orientation. And in order to have a service orientation, we need to start with sort of how do we define who we are, what we do, what quality level are we going to do this? So if I'm a graphic designer again, I'm going to basically say I'm going to be the best in town. I'm going to have the best accounts, and when people work with me, they will get the best graphic design ever, right? That's like religious way of looking at what is it that you stand for. Then the second one, which is the differentiated service offer, is how your graphic design service will be a whole lot better than anybody else's. When people work with you, what experience are they going to get? What quality level are they going to get? And then number three, are they going to remember you the next time they need this stuff? And again, even if you're working within an organization on a team and you're thinking, what is it that I do for them? You have to find out, are you the project manager? Are you the accountant? Are you the business analyst? Are you the software developer? And think of that service and how memorable the experience is for everybody that is on the receiving end of what it is that you do. And how memorable is this experience going to be? Are they going to think of you the next time they think of an amazing software developer? Or are they going not to think of anybody? So you have very much like how you think of all the amazing brands globally, Apple or any other brand. When you think about a fantastic UI, you're thinking Apple. When you're thinking about a fantastic hotel experience, you're thinking the Ritz, right? So again, when you're thinking software developer, are you thinking Kareem? Are you thinking John? Are you thinking Kathy? Are you thinking Susie? Who is it that comes up to mind? And I think your own challenge is to make sure that when they think about what you do, your name comes up. If it doesn't come up, we have work to do. The very last stage when we think about crushing it is about an excellence mindset, which really summarizes everything we talked about so far. When you have an excellence mindset, when you have a focus on creating a customer wow factor, then you realize, my goodness, this is just going to be amazing for me as I do it, because it's going to be enjoyable, and also for my customer, because my customer will feel like they're getting the best experience ever. And when all of that happens, we start to be on the receiving end of what we basically call sort of like putting your business and your career on autopilot. You start getting repeat business. When people think of needing graphic design or software development, they call you up, they email you, they text you, hey buddy, I've got this opportunity. So you start getting repeat business from the same people you've done business with, and here's where it gets really sweet, when you start getting new business based on referrals from the people that you've done business with, or somebody looks you up and finds you and they can see the amazing results that you've achieved for others. That's when you're crushing it. That's when you're not struggling every day. That's not when you're struggling for your next job opportunity. You're not struggling for your next customer. Most businesses, most professionals are not thinking about the next opportunity. When they are working on a specific opportunity, they are not aware of the fact that they need to be doing what they're doing today in a way that creates the next opportunity, that brings in the next customer, right? So when you go to any store in the US, and I know now almost everywhere else, people say to you, thank you for your business. Are you doing that? Are you doing it in a way that people will say thank you for your service, right? So this formula really simplifies a very big universe into three things. You got to own it, you got to win it when you do it, and you got to crush it in a way that you get more business and repeat business as well. So I know I went through a lot. I think in the next few slides, we're going to try to go very quickly, and then we have an opportunity for Q&A. So where do you start? You start by coming up with a future vision for yourself, if you're thinking of yourself as an individual, if you're thinking of your team, or if you're thinking of your business. You have to think about, okay, I've heard what Ash said. I also have a lot of learning and knowledge and a lot of other data points from a lot of sources. I have to sort of come up with a description for how I'm going to be, whether that's in the next 5 minutes or in the next week or the next month. I have to come up with what's called the future vision. And I have a book on Amazon on this, and a workbook that you could use to sort of do this, especially if you have a business and you want to think through all the details. But in simple language, you want to describe what that looks like. You know, if you're that graphic designer and you want to sort of show up in a different way, do your work in a different way, and get business in the future in a different way, try to think of what that vision looks like, and then have a unified destiny. Have alignment between yourself and your family, or between yourself and your team, between yourself and everybody else that's working with you. We have to share that vision and develop it together so that when we move forward, we're moving together as a group of birds that you can see in the sky, all going in the same direction and not all over the place, right? So that's what we mean by a unified destiny, is that when we develop it together and we feel it in our bones, then we're ready to move to the next step. And we'll look at the next slide with that in mind. So I was listening to this discussion on YouTube, C-suite panel, and Linda Boff, who is the Chief Marketing Officer at GE, was talking about the changes that are happening in GE and how they need to have people from the future in all organizations. And here's what she means by this. When you're developing a vision, as we were just saying earlier, what you want to do is as you think about that vision, you have to realize that even you yourself, you're not that person yet, or you're not that business yet, or you're not that organization yet. So what you want to do is you want to, with your own imagination, literally travel in space and in time to that vision, and you want to stand there, you know, and just look around. Look around. What do you see? What do you hear? What are people saying? Right? How are you feeling? And what are you thinking? And if you're looking yourself up on the web, what are you reading? What's written on LinkedIn? What does your bio say? If you were to go talk to a colleague, what is she or he going to say when you ask them, can you please give me a recommendation? Can you become my reference? What are they going to be saying? Think about all these words, all these sounds, what the things you're going to see, the smiles on their faces, right? Because they have just had an amazing experience working with you. And then you want to come back, and then you're going to say, okay, I see what that looks like. And you want to come back and you want to think about, in order to get there, I now see what the delta is, right? But the beauty of traveling in time is this excitement. I am feeling it right now. This excitement of seeing what that better future looks like, and it just warms you up. And then all of a sudden you're so excited you want to get there, and then you start taking action that's going to get there. That's going to get you there, right? And you can literally see those recommendations on LinkedIn completely different, perhaps, from what we have today, right? You're totally thinking completely different, right? So when I heard her say we need to have people from the future in all organizations, because it's these people who have that vision, who talk about it, who are so excited, even if it's about their own vision, about their own careers, about their own future, about their own lives. When you have that vision and you're talking about it every day, you're evangelizing it every day, it's so powerful because it gets everybody to say, my God, I like what he's talking about. I like what she's talking about. I want to go where she's going. And when you get to that point on a daily basis, you're so much energy, you're so much excitement. People just want to gravitate to you and help you do what you're talking about because it just sounds so good, right? We'll move forward and take a look at the next chart, the charts. I think you get the point here. So when we start applying this, you take this formula and you say, okay, I want to get this done. And we just described what you want to do as an individual. But let's say you are in a business and you're trying to do this in a bigger way, right? So if we do this as a consulting engagement, if you were to say to me, hey, Ash, come over, we actually want to do this for our business, right? We're going to have to start at the level of the thought process, as we said, right? We have to think about what the vision is, what the destiny is, and what the culture is. And the culture is the composite of those mindsets, of those beliefs, of those values, right? We're going to have to sort of rewrite those with you and your teams, create that unified destiny. And once we have that vision, and we're all fired up because we went there in time, we traveled in time, we saw what it looks like, and now we want to really create it, right? Then we start putting our strategies in order. We start putting our plans in order. We start thinking about what is this win it mastery is going to look like in our business interactions and our customer interactions, and think about our activities, the business interactions that we have on a daily basis, and think about how it is today, how it needs to look in the future, and then cover that delta again, right? Think about the results we want to achieve. What is the world going to look like? And then a lot of people like to have very specific metrics. That's when we create these metrics, and then we start executing. And then we take a look at how do we then celebrate? How are we going to have this sort of tribal dance at the very end once we achieve the vision that we have for ourselves? How do we recognize people for what they've done? How do we give them rewards? How do you celebrate as an organization? And make sure that that stage is a very critical component of what we do. Don't take anything for granted, right? Don't even take yourself for granted. Don't take anybody around you for granted. They can literally leave, right? They can go find another job, another opportunity, start their own business. If you don't focus on making sure that you recognize them and make sure that they understand and see how they are part of that future vision, and how what they do on a daily basis is very critical for us to get there, right? So we also certify consultants, employees who want to do this internally. We give them the tools, we give them the content in order for them to actually get this done internally. But I want you to think of this as simple as possible. Literally, if you start adopting these mindsets, and then based on those mindsets, you start thinking about what actions do I need to do in order to actually showcase to people that I'm now a believer in these mindsets, everything you do is going to change, right? We'll move forward in the slide deck here. And this is an opportunity for us to pause, take a look at some questions before I go to my final slides and kind of wrap things up. So Ned, I want to give the floor back to you, and let's just have a quick discussion, see if you have any questions.
Sure, sure. Thank you so much for that. I really feel like you provided a great overview, and hopefully not just myself, but everyone else is ready to use the own it, win it, crush it model. That was great. So as you know, most of our viewers are in the Middle East. So we did have a question come in asking about your advice for entrepreneurs from the Middle East. Would it be the same? And if not, what different tips would you have for entrepreneurs in the Middle East?
That's a great question. I think, again, having come from the Middle East, the very initial phase of owning it, I think, is everything we talked about will be the same, and will even be more the same in the Middle East, in the sense that there is so much negativity around us for several reasons. You know, what's happening politically, all the different wars, and just the mentality and the mindsets of people around us all the time. Especially even if you're walking in the streets where I come from, Alexandria, and you see these cafes and people sitting, and you're like, God, there's so much time they have on their hands. And you're wondering, are you nuts? Because you don't have as much time to sit at the coffee shop for these long hours, right? I do go to Starbucks and I hang out and I sit, but not for that long. And if I'm sitting, I'm doing something useful, I'm hoping. And it's okay for me sometimes to go and have fun and joke and do hook and all of that stuff. But I think for us in the Middle East, the more you are the kind of person that brings that responsible mindset to the table and the positivity of the abundance mindset, I think you'll be someone that just goes a whole lot farther than a lot of other people. A lot of people will say there are no opportunities. And as an Egyptian myself, where there are a lot of people there who say there are no opportunities, there is a ton of opportunity in Egypt. There is a ton of money in Egypt. We all know that. When you see all these amazing companies and businesses flourishing, like I know in Alexandria, a lot of Alexandrians now are talking about our brothers and sisters from Syria coming into Alexandria with their entrepreneurial spirit and changing their future and changing their presence and their future and starting amazing businesses. And a lot of Alexandrians think, gosh, how did these guys do it? And I'm like, they got off their butt. They got off the seats. They got off these chairs in the coffee shop and said, let's figure something out. 10 guys with 10,000 pounds will have 100,000 pounds. And all of a sudden they can create an amazing business. There is absolutely no reason why people cannot change their conditions, unless, of course, they are in a situation where they just can't physically because of wars or whatnot.
Right. And I definitely agree with you. And I mean, you've touched upon some of the challenges that entrepreneurs face in the Middle East. For example, the unfortunate political situation sometimes poses additional challenges. But what other challenges do you see that entrepreneurs in the Middle East face other than political? And how do you feel that they can overcome these challenges?
I think definitely there's a challenge of finding the right market. I think sometimes even when you think about the market, sometimes our perceptions create our realities. Which, I mean, everybody who has looked at the cell phone market in Egypt, for example, I'm one of the people will say I can't believe how people have all the phones they have, and they pay all this money for the phone plans they have. So you have at some point to believe and take the risk that there is a market, when sometimes a lot of people will tell you you're nuts. There's absolutely no market. So I think there has to be a bit of risk taking in order for you sometimes to create your own opportunity. And I definitely believe that a key challenge here would be to find the market for an opportunity or a service, and the fact that typically a lot of people will stand in your way. So you have to think in a very maverick way, in a very unconventional way, to get things done. Start small, get some market testing, get people to tell you the idea doesn't make sense, and then sometimes you have to believe in yourself and keep pushing forward, even if a lot of others around you may be telling you not to do so. So the other challenge, I'm sure, is access to money. It's not as easy as it is probably here in the Silicon Valley, where there's a lot of money that's looking for an opportunity, especially on the startup space. But I'm hoping that people kind of get the idea of the more you collaborate with others, the more the chances that you're going to cut down on the challenges that you have, and then you have more firepower, several individuals, several funding sources, hopefully, several connections and opportunity.
Okay, so that's a perfect lead up to the next question. Someone was asking specifically about the challenge of funding and not having access to enough funds. So what would be your advice around gaining more funding?
I know that's a big challenge. I think the only way is to do what's possible, right? So if I don't have enough funding, and I can have a very small business for a few years in the local market, I could perhaps prove that first, have people support it, and then when I have a profitable model and I go to close friends and show them that the model is working, I show them the numbers. Because I think in the Middle East versus, let's say, Western world, there's a lot more transparency on this side. People are much more willing to tell you, here's how much they spent, here's how much money they made. Whereas over there, for several reasons, a lot of people will not tell you that. So I think if you do something different by showing people, here's my cash flow statement, here's what I spent on the business, here's how much money I'm making, here's even the access from my bank account. Go and take a look at the data, right? If you do something unconventionally in that environment, you may actually be able to change that world. Being willing to share in the ownership. One of the things I learned in the Silicon Valley is that it's much better to have part of something than 100% of nothing, right? A lot of people working on a startup would be thinking, I have to get everybody to sign an NDA, and I have to make sure that they know I own this and they own this, and we keep fighting on ownership. But forget that. Build a company that succeeds. Even if you own 0.05% of that company, you will become rich, right? You will have something to show at the end. So I think try to get yourself out of the equation as much as you can. Get your ego out of the equation as much as you can. And say, you know what, from the beginning, this company is owned by the 5 of us or the 10 of us. And being willing to share, again, will make a shift in how we're approaching things. And hopefully that will create opportunities for funding.
Great, thank you. So the next question is specifically about leadership. I actually have two questions on leadership. And one of them was, what do you see as something that all companies need to work on within their leadership? And then the second question, which ties very well into that, is how important is leadership to the success of a company?
Leadership is critical. This piece about vision that we talked about, and the book, my book on Amazon, basically the title is "Start with a Vision." It's very critical that you actually work with people that have a vision for what that better future is, because you want to be working in an environment that is exciting, not today, but rather every single day, right? You want to go work for a company that excites you on a constant basis. So the leadership has to be excited about the present time, and the future, right? The present condition of the business and the vision for the business, and continue to communicate that vision and that excitement. People feed off that excitement. You have to be a passionate, emotionally intelligent leader who communicates the excitement of this business, the potential for this business, the potential for the market, and how, against all odds, we are going to absolutely make sure we create that vision, right? So you want that kind of leadership, and you want to sort of be also a representative of that kind of leadership, which essentially means, at Cisco, we've always said, lead from where you are, which means every one of us listening to this conversation, every one of us is a leader in our own way. And from wherever you are, if you use that responsible mindset and that abundance mindset and a consultative mindset, you can make a huge difference. So leadership is actually something that is owned by all of us, and not just by who the founder is, or the CEO is, or the boss, or the manager. You're it, my friend.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Um, Great. So I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions. This one question is specifically about top 1% sellers factory. What is the most common service request from companies that you receive?
I think the most common request is, help us find out why are the sales professionals leaving money on the table. And that really starts, just based on my experience at Cisco as well. It's really driven by people's mindsets. Even if you are a salesperson who has sold millions of dollars, even at that level, sometimes the thought process, the mindset that they have, let's say they feel like they're not adequate enough or they're not good enough, that really affects what they do on the job and how much money they can make. Or if their thought process is, there is not enough money in this account, which really starts with that abundance mindset, they actually have, the flip of that. They basically have this sort of scarcity mindset where they think there's no money in this account. This account is dead, right? Whereas if you think with an abundance mindset, this account is full of life, and there's a ton of money in here, and we haven't sold enough. And then all of a sudden, you're basically saying to your colleagues, let's get together in a conference room and sit together and just brainstorm the hell out of this opportunity, what this company does, what the competitors are doing, and then put together a value proposition that we can take back into this company. And instead of selling for $10,000, we sell for $10 million, right? So you have to look again at the mindsets. And that's what, top 1% sellers, based on our experience, when we launched the top 1% website, you'll see that the first thing we talk about is mindsets. That's really what it starts with. So that's a key request. And then the other key request is helping companies develop the right message about the value that they bring to the table. So we help them develop the message and then use that core message and apply it across their online content, their PowerPoints, their customer conversations, so that everybody consistently is communicating that value to the customer.
All right. And the last question is regarding your formula. Do you feel that your formula is business specific or region specific?
It isn't actually, and that's, as I was thinking about it, it has to be, as I said in the beginning, it has to stand the test of time, and it has to have validity, which means whatever you apply it, it should work. And I think it's even better for the Middle East because It is really driven by being in that power position, taking control back, right? We're living in an environment in the Middle East where everybody around you wants to take that control from you. They want to really get you depressed. They want you to sit at the coffee shop and think there is nothing that you could do. And I want you to take that control back and say, I am the master of my own universe, or the mistress of my own universe. I have four sisters, and I've constantly said that whether you're a man or a woman, you can do amazing things. And I think the formula gives you that control from the very beginning. With the own it starting point, you're really driven, and then you're someone who is really wanting to make a difference. People will gravitate to you.
Yeah. Great, great. Well, that concludes our webinar. Thank you so much, Ash, for sharing your insights. We really appreciate it. And if you don't mind, we would love to add your presentation online for any of those who didn't get to see the presentation, if that's okay.
Absolutely. And I would like us to show the very last slide, just
sure.
A link for people that they can use. So this slide here kind of gives you some next steps. There's a link for you to actually get a chapter that I have written in this book with Jack Canfield, which is actually the chapter is about this formula, and it gives more details. And then if you go to this link, you'll also be able to connect with me and get a whole lot more information over time as well.
Wonderful. So we'll definitely be sure to add that online for everyone to check out. So thank you again, Ash, and thank you to all of our viewing partners, the Crib, Gaza Sky Geeks, Senate Team for Development, and Work Factory. Thank you all, and take care. Have a great day.
Thanks, Nina. Thanks,
Bye, Ash. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.